LawFlip, objection, your honor.
Turn the game upside down.
LawFlip, objection, your honor.
Turn the game upside down.
All right, welcome to LawFlip. It's an unfiltered conversation about law, life, criminal defense, and everything in between. I'm Benjy Smith. So our guest is a dynamic state and federal criminal law attorney in Los Angeles. He concentrates his practice on predominantly white and blue-collar criminal defense. He also has a presence online and on TV, interviewed many times. Please, let's welcome to the show, Lou Shapiro. So let's flip the game upside down. Okay, so Lou, tell us about what's your story? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Los Angeles, right here in the Valley. Don't tell anyone in the city that, though, or they won't speak to me after.
That's correct. They have what's called Valergies.
Yes. Oh, I've never heard that one. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of my Persian friends in the city like to make fun of me for that.
Okay, so you can empathize with this suffering.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. So and then just take us through your education.
So went to Yeshiva University in New York City, followed by Cardozo Law School. Came back out here from the East Coast. I was tired of that winter weather. And then I joined the LA County Public Defender's Office for 5 years, and then started my own criminal law practice about 10 years ago in here in Century City.
Great. And then tell us about your practice and who you represent.
I mean, anybody that's accused of a criminal offense, whether it's anything from a low-level misdemeanor all the way up to a federal offense like money laundering, wire fraud, bank fraud, and now obviously with PPP fraud.
And you've built a great reputation for yourself. What do you attribute to your success?
I don't know if I can call it success now, but thank you for saying that. I think I have a long way to go. But I think it's just doing things, I think, in the right order and having patience in doing it. I mentor a lot of young law students and lawyers and tell them there's just no shortcut. And that was really going through the LA County Public Defender's Office, going through those thousands of cases and just kind of earning my stripes. And I think after anyone does it, they can just kind of go from there and go into private practice if they want to.
Yeah, and you seem to enjoy what you do. And I don't know if you know this, but a lot of our colleagues don't enjoy what they do. And so how have you managed to keep sort of happy as an attorney?
Okay, so yeah, I am fortunate from a young age to really just kind of know what I wanted to do. Even from watching criminal defense attorneys on television, I always saw them as the superheroes without a cape. So I think when I put on my suit and tie every day, I feel like I'm doing that same superhero role when a lot of society may not feel that way. But I think the idea is if you don't know what you want to do, rather than having to try to commit to a 6-month internship at a law firm working for free, sometimes it's just meeting with lawyers from different fields for an hour, learning about what they do. And then if you have some interest in it, say, can I just hang out with you for a day, see what you're doing? And just like dating, I think pretty quickly you can see if you want to learn more about it and get more into that field.
What do you like about being a lawyer? Even notwithstanding the fact that you found a way to be happy, what do you particularly like about doing what you do, and what are some of the tougher things that you wish weren't involved in doing? I like the
competitiveness of it. I like that there's a winner and a loser. I always loved sports growing up. I play a lot of basketball. I still play basketball. I love to win. I'm not a sore loser, but I don't like losing. So I think that plays very well in the criminal defense arena when it's either not guilty or guilty, basically. And I love to win, so I just get to carry that into what I do. And there's a lot on the line for that matter. I like when there's a lot on the line, versus civil law when there's maybe money involved. When someone's liberty is on the line, I love the pressure, and I want to rise to the occasion. It's just my personality. Most people aren't wired this way.
That's absolutely true. And so what are the things that you're not wired for that you have to deal with?
I think I'm not wired for writing long and lengthy motions that just go on and on and on. I can do them, but I don't want to sit for hours in an office researching and writing. I'd like someone who is more of a legal to kind of, I tell them, here are my issues, here, please see what you can find out in terms of the cases. I'm more of a person who I think articulate the points, present them, organize them. But when it comes to spending hours in an office, that's not me. I like to be out and about, court to court.
That's a great point, and that's something that a lot of lawyers get hung up doing. It's like a lot of us think that we have to do every single thing A through Z, and it's kind of frowned upon to figure out how to delegate and to figure out what's your sweet spot, what are some other people's sweet spot. So how do you do that? How do you figure out what you should be working on and what do you have other people work on?
I think if you like doing something, then that already tells you, yeah, I'm going to be good at it. If you don't enjoy doing something, then you know kind of right there, you're like, maybe this, if I don't enjoy doing something, kind of like what that Marie Kondo's all about, whether you keep or throw something away, does this bring you joy? Does this item bring you joy? And if it doesn't, she says to discard it. It's a simple principle, and I think it applies to our field too. If you don't like researching and writing, find someone who does, and go from there.
Yeah, because there's for sure a lot of people who love that stuff. I don't particularly, but I completely agree. There's people out there. So, and then one of the other things we talk about is how in order to really get ownership of your life as a lawyer, you really have to be able to generate business. And they don't teach that oftentimes in law school or really anywhere. How have you figured out a way to get clients and to build your business?
I think that the secret sauce there is just being two things. One is the mindset should be, what can I give to the legal community versus what can I get? In terms of, so I'm always referring cases out. Because I only do criminal law, I refer, trademark, immigration, personal injury, and all those. So I'm just focused on what can I send out to my colleagues and help people out. And then good karma brings it back. And then the second thing is just being honest in terms of not trying to take on every case that you get a call about. Most cases we actually turn away, in a sense just saying, you know what, it's not worth spending costs on our firm when you can get the same result just by going to court on day one and pleading no contest and going with the public defender. Sometimes I even tell people, you can call me from court with the public defender. If I'll tell you if I think that's fair. And I think that also goes a long way.
Yeah.
For some reason, honesty is a novelty.
Yeah, I know, and you build trust with people, and then they want to come back to you, or they want to send your friends to you. Hopefully, they don't come back to you, but I also noticed another thing that you do is you try to build community. So I see that, aren't you part of the LA Attorney Network on Facebook?
Yes, I'm all about connecting people. Yes.
Did you start that?
I think I'm one of the founders of it that got it off the ground.
Yeah.
I didn't exactly start from scratch, but yeah, I've been building it over
but that's
the
one of
years.
those things that you build that, there's no direct, let's say, economic impact, but people see your name. It's affiliated with a really great resource. It's for people that don't know. It's basically a Facebook group online where thousands of attorneys basically post questions and referrals and all that type of stuff. And have you seen, just out of curiosity, I know you didn't do it for this, but have you seen referrals and things come from the fact that you have your name's involved with that?
I don't think directly. And again, I don't even really do it for that reason. People have approached me to try to market on that website. Say, hey, I'll give you thousands of dollars a month just to put my law firm at the top. I'm like, no, this is what the beauty and secret sauce of this engine is, that there is no ulterior motives in it. It really is just, like you said, it's a Facebook community of lawyers to help each other out, exchange motions, give referrals, help lawyers or new lawyers get jobs.
Sure.
And I've gotten countless, fan mail about the beauty of it. So that alone, I'm just happy for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something a little bit different that you do is on your personal Facebook, you post tons of articles, and a lot of times you post kind of like news of the day. And your kind of only comment that I see you make is only in America. And then you have a lot of people on all sorts of sides of the spectrum go at it, kind of just fighting over whatever the news of the day is. What's your goal with this?
I love it. So there is an overarching theme here with all these posts, like you picked up on it, and that is the only in America theme, which is, this country is so remarkable in that sometimes you'll see a case ruling or something in politics that will just impress you, and you'll say, wow, only in America something so great could be achieved. And then there's other days where you see somebody maybe get scot-free, right? Or just get a result that you think that was not fair. Why is this person getting out of jail early? Because of COVID-19. Why is Michael Cohen's getting released? And at the same time, that's also only in America. This country is full of surprises. And that's really the overarching thing. That's why it keeps popping up. If you haven't gotten it yet, you probably have.
Yeah. But it's interesting that you refrain from generally giving your own take. Why do you do that?
Because I see my role in this as more of a moderator. Think of it like a presidential debate where you have Lester Holt. He's just throwing the questions out there. He's not supposed to take a position, because once the moderator starts taking a strong position, it alienates an entire group of people who really want to express their opinion. So my goal here is that this should be a bastion of First Amendment, a living and breathing First Amendment platform where everyone can freely express their feelings and views. And you see really great minds debating. You see lawyers, doctors, accountants, hairdressers, automotive mechanics. You see the microcosm of this country coming together and hashing out ideals. And so many people have said to me privately that they gained so much. And in fact, they get more excited about the comments than they do about the actual post or even what's on Netflix at that night.
Wow. So, it is an interesting place to be. And I wonder, does it take a lot of discipline for you not to give your personal take? Or is it so overwhelming to you, the positive, the net benefit from staying out of it, that it's not even tempting for you to get into the conversation?
Right. So the only time I will jump in, 2 times. One is if it's getting personal, too personal, where people are just attacking each other. I don't think that's healthy. There's no place. I try to tame that down. And the second is if it's a legal issue, a blatant legal issue or a miscarriage of justice that I feel is happening, then I will jump in and address it, or at least try to level the playing field. For example, we had with Joe Biden here, right, who was, when Tara Reid comes out and says that she was, sexually assaulted by him years ago, and you don't hear much from the Me Too camp, right? But when it happened to Kavanaugh, right, it was up in arms, Me Too, let's have hearings and all that stuff. So there was an inconsistency. So I did chime in there and say, listen, due process is the same for everybody. Whether you're Kavanaugh, whether you're Biden.
But you're assuming that was an apples and apples comparison, that the Kavanaugh,
correct,
right? So and I'm sure. Did you feel the same need? What did you think about the allegations against Trump, against Kavanaugh, against Biden? Do you think those are all apples to apples type cases?
Yes, as a criminal lawyer, we're trained to think that everyone's entitled to the presumption of innocence, unless and until someone is proven guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. So and I know we're not in a criminal arena necessarily when we're talking about these cases, but I think the spirit of statute of limitations, meaning, you have so many years that go by, and it puts a defendant in a hamstrung position to defend themselves. Those principles also, I think, apply in everyday life. I'm not saying one is right or wrong, but there has to be, I think, some uniformity or consistency when we're looking at each individual person. Everyone should be held to the same standard, whether they're on the left or the right. And that's what my purpose was of that post.
Sure.
People responded how they felt. And I'm all about debate. I'm all about disagreement. We need to disagree.
So as it relates to COVID, without getting into too much detail, what's been the effect on your business and just your clients in general? So
crime has gone down dramatically. That's what the stats are on the street, and I see that also in the office. The phone is very quiet. All my cases are getting continued into July, sometimes even August. And what I foresee happening is to go to trial, especially on an out-of-custody person, it's going to take months, maybe even over a year, because there's going to be new cases being filed now that we're getting into phase 2, entering to phase 3 pretty soon. Crime will pick up, so you're going to have all the new cases with the old. Dockets are going to be slammed, and it will be chaos. And then if we take it one step forward, winter is coming, as they say in Game of Thrones. I think we're going to be hunkered down again for a few months again. Yeah, I think that's inevitable. And then speaking of COVID, last Thursday, Lori Loughlin, a.k.a. Aunt Becky, part of the infamous college admissions scandal, pled guilty to crimes. I'm curious, what, if any, connection do you think that has to the fact that we're in this COVID era and she might get some beneficial treatment as a result of that? And what's your take in general on the case? Contrary to what I'm reading about or other people's opinions, I don't think COVID-19 really had anything to do with this. Because, in fact, on the contrary, I think that with COVID-19, someone would be less inclined to want to take a deal now because Lori Loughlin, she doesn't know whether or not she's going to get out for that. There's no guarantee. The reason why I think this happened now, though, is because she recently, just a week ago, lost a very important motion, a motion to dismiss based on prosecutorial misconduct. Right? Basically, her lawyers were saying that the prosecution was withholding exculpatory evidence, that they were trying to fabricate evidence to make it look worse with her, and they lost that motion. And she probably spent thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in that motion work alone, at Latham, not a cheap firm. Adding to that, she's already been litigating this for a whole year. Enough is enough. I think she saw that was like a sign. She's like, you know what, maybe I need to reconsider this whole thing. What am I fighting for at this point?
Yeah, I think that's one thing in litigation that people don't quite understand that are not familiar with it. It's like capitalism. The market sort of does what it needs to do. So somebody doesn't want to settle a case early on, okay, then you're going to feel the pain of not settling the case. Your bills will stack up. Eventually, you will want to resolve this case. I'm sure you see that all the time with clients, right?
Right. I think it's very common what you're saying in family law. That's when I think parties finally decide to settle. So much money in. Let's just move on.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, part of what you do is you represent clients that I'm sure you disagree with. You disagree with who they are as a person, you disagree with their politics, you disagree with all sorts of stuff, but you believe that they deserve representation. I'm curious though, just from a criminal law perspective as representing a client, how do you think you would do representing someone like Donald Trump if he was subjected to rigorous cross-examination from a skilled trial attorney in trial?
I think I would enjoy it. And that's just because criminal defense lawyers, we are wired a certain way where we're able to look past our own clients' shortcomings and mistakes that they've made or errors that they've made. And we see ourselves upholding a higher calling. We're protecting the innocent, not the guilty. We're making sure that people who really didn't do something wrong aren't wrongfully convicted. And the people that maybe did something wrong aren't railroaded, aren't punished too harshly. We see ourselves as the last stop for justice. So whoever the client is, whatever they may...
What do you do with somebody like Trump who thinks that they could talk themselves out of something, and you might be concerned that under penalty of perjury, they'd get themselves in trouble?
Well, all we can do is advise our client and say, listen, I don't think it's a good idea for you to testify or to make that point. If you do it, you're putting yourself at your own peril. Obviously, if there becomes a conflict of representation where we're just going in different directions, sometimes lawyers aren't always meant for the client. You try to weed that out when you take on the client and vice versa. You want to make a good match from the beginning.
Okay, I want to turn to the latest, sort of Trump/MAGA conspiracy theory, this Obamagate. Do you know what is Obamagate?
I apologize. I'm not familiar with the specific theory.
In the past few weeks, you've heard the rhetoric built up about so-called Obamagate that somehow Trump was being spied upon by the Obama administration as it relates to unmasking or supposed unmasking of Michael Flynn. And I was going to get to ask you about just that case in general and this whole take on whether he should be pardoned and all that.
Whether who should be pardoned?
Mike Flynn.
Okay. I mean, Flynn I'm able to speak to just because I've been following the legal policies. So if we focus in on him, it seems like he's really, being run through the system, right? Here's a situation where it's come out that the prosecution continued to go after him even at the time when they realized the Russian investigation was not going to yield what they thought it was going to yield. They prosecuted him under a law also that hadn't been, I think, used since 1790 or some, antiquated point in time. You add to that the fact that the prosecution now is trying to pull back, allow him to withdraw his plea, and the judge is saying, oh, not so fast. Because the fact that you pled guilty, now you're saying, well, I'm not guilty, that could constitute perjury, and the federal judge is bringing in another former judge to act as sort of a consultant on the case, which is really unprecedented.
that was odd. I found that to be odd. But wait, but you're saying that he was prosecuted under some antiquated statute. Didn't he admit to criminal wrongdoing? And I mean, there was no confusion about that. He acknowledged his guilt multiple times.
Well, defendants all the time, acknowledge their guilt when they're taking a plea because that's part of the agreement. They have to acknowledge it on the record so that way there's no issue later on where they say, I didn't know what I was pleading to. I want to appeal what I pled to. So they have to get that on the record. So the fact that he said it or stated it, while it is compelling when you hear it being read back, he can easily say, look, this is what I had to do at that time, thinking it was in my best interest on the advice of counsel.
Right. But have you seen any evidence that there was like some sort of criminal wrongdoing by the Obama administration to set Michael Flynn up? And I remember seeing this was some sort of underground conspiracy by them, but I remember it being very public knowledge that the Obama administration warned the Trump administration about this gentleman, and it wasn't like they were trying to do it,
right,
subvertly.
I mean, look, I'm not on the inside. I think it's unless you're really on the inside, it's really hard to speak with authority on the issue. But is it suspicious? Fair. Yeah, one could say it's suspicious, right?
But what was suspicious?
No, meaning that people, you're trying to tie in the dots that people are trying to connect. The fact that Flynn was prosecuted when these, it should have closed, apparently, in hindsight. Or the people that prosecuted him apparently were under the Obama administration. There's people that, the argument can be made that there is some suspicion to this whole thing. Does it track to Obama? That's a whole nother story. I haven't been presented with evidence of that. That's where we get to the conspiracy theory part.
Right. And most of the criminal prosecution was done of Michael Flynn was done under the Trump Department of Justice.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Yeah. So, okay. So, I remember early on in this pandemic, you were one of the ones that were sort of advocating for close the courts. You wanted to keep everybody safe. Are you now a keep the courts closed guy, or are you a open California guy?
I'm of the opinion, I like that question, to open the courts, but in a safe way, right? I mean, I'm putting my trust in experts that know better than me. I'm not an infectious disease expert. So if our local experts who we have to rely on, right, to say, yeah, it's okay to open, providing people wear face masks, you do as much appearances over Zoom as we can, which I've been doing, practice social distancing, then I will follow what they're saying. I was upset in the beginning when there was just no precaution being taken, when it was just like, yeah, everyone's hunkering down, but the courts are open. That's when I reached out, to the presiding judge and go, hey, this is not right. We can't be, the courts are like the mall, like anything, or you have a bunch of people.
It's a disgusting place. It could be a really disgusting place. Okay, so you're kind of the balanced deal. Open it up, but do it in a safe way. That makes sense. And then a lot of people are simply ignoring the stay-at-home orders. And look, all of us can sympathize with people who want to get the heck out of their house. I mean, this is brutal. There's no two ways about it. But do you feel like that it would be fair to criminalize the people who are simply ignoring the stay-at-home orders? And if you don't, how do you make this thing work?
The stay-at-home orders are put into place under the guise that is to protect, public health and safety. So if people are violating those types of principles, which are held very dear to everybody, then criminal prosecution seems to be fair. No different than prosecuting someone knowingly infecting someone with a sexually transmitted disease.
Sure.
Those are codified. So the analogy is the same here.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then, okay, obviously, the last time when we went out of law school, we were going through one of the worst economic times in our lives. And now you have law students who are coming out in the worst time ever. What advice do you have for law students coming out of school right now, or any students coming out of school right now that are looking to figure out what's my path forward?
I think the answer is that it may look pretty bleak right now, but we'll call it this crisis, this economic crisis, is very different than the one we had about 10 years ago, or a little longer. But this crisis is really one where we're going to bounce back. And the underlying issue is not fraud or money being stolen or not given. The underlying issue is really disease. And once we can get a vaccine, then everything will be back to normal. So I think that students will be okay. I think law firms will be okay also. It's just a matter of a few months versus a few years, which is what the last one resulted in.
Cool. Okay. All right. So let's move to Deal of the Week. So this one's super hard. Don't try to go to people for advice that are not available to do it. So In the business context, I would say if you're looking to become an entrepreneur, I would not go to a lifelong employee for that type of advice. If you're looking for emotional support, I would not go to somebody who is an emotional wreck. And this is really hard to do because a lot of people that are close to us, or friends, or family, or business associates, you may be used to going to them for important things, but you just don't want to go to a doctor for a criminal defense lawyer. You'd want to go to a criminal defense case. You'd want to go to someone like Lou. And so I would just be very careful about who you're going to for advice for what you're trying to accomplish. Lou, what's your deal of the week?
My deal of the week is I really like this show Money Heist on Netflix, actually. And it follows, a bunch of people who want to go into a bank and take it over, and there's a lot of drama, romance, all sorts of stuff in it. But especially when you watch it, I recommend watching it with the English words. You can choose that version on Netflix instead of watching with the subtitles, because then you end up reading so much unnecessarily, even though the English doesn't quite match the way their mouths move. It's a fascinating, riveting documentary on Netflix, and I highly recommend it.
I will check that out. Okay, now we're on to Legal Tip of the Week. This is presented by my firm, Smith & Benowitz. We do employment, personal injury, and class actions. So, my legal tip of the week. If you're working from home, your employer has to reimburse you for your out-of-pocket expenses. Things like internet, things like your phone, your computer. They may seem small, they may seem nitpicky to people, but people that are working and have a hard time affording their bills, when they have to pay out of pocket for things that are really employer type expenses, they deserve to be reimbursed. So if you are in that situation, contact an experienced employment attorney. I wouldn't mind if it was us. And you could find out your rights. Okay, Lou, what is your legal tip of the week?
Well, I think an interesting tip people can go with is, and I don't really do a lot of these traffic tickets, but I think people find it interesting, that if someone gets a traffic ticket, rather than thinking you have to plead guilty or not guilty, always do the trial by declaration first. And what that means is you check off this box, trial by declaration. So first you get the ticket by the card. Then in the mail, you get a follow-up letter saying, what do you want to do next? Click off trial by declaration, you send it back, and then you get a blank form to fill out. All you do is you write, I hereby dispute the charges. That's all you write. Don't write you were speeding, not speeding, any of that. If you send it back and if the cop doesn't reply, it automatically gets dismissed. If he does reply, you're back where you started. So
that's great.
It's not a well-known thing, and I find 50% of the time they don't reply. So why not?
That's great advice. I think people will really find that helpful. Okay, now is our ad sponsor, Rock Paper. So, Lou, we all know it's scary when you sign up for a subscription, but the trial period requires your credit card. Isn't that scary, Lou?
Yes, very scary.
Okay, well, wouldn't it be great if you never had to submit your actual credit card number, or you could block the merchant from charging you until you could approve it?
Where do I sign?
Okay, well, Lou, that's how Rock Paper is. You create a proxy credit card on demand that's linked to your actual credit card or debit card. The merchant can only charge you when you say so, and you don't have to give your card number to a third party. And you could avoid criminals like your clients stealing your personal private information. So get Rock Paper, spend wisely, join the movement. And I'm not saying all your clients are criminals. Of course, some of them are.
Of course not.
So join the movement, get Rock Paper, ROCKPAPR.com, join the movement. Okay, so Lou, what did we learn today? We learned that you are very good at keeping your opinion, your political and personal opinions private, but you do it for the greater good. You do it so that people could have civil discourse and go at each other, but you're hoping that something better will come out of it. We realize that when you're building a business, and I agree with this entirely, you want to provide value. If you provide value to your customers, your potential customers, or to other attorneys or to other people, if you provide value to other people, it's going to come back to you. And we also realize that trial by declaration, and when you get a traffic ticket, is the best move, best unknown, kept secret in the game. So, Lou, we really appreciate your time and the information you had to give us. Could you give us where we could find you online and any parting words?
Well, first of all, thank you for those kind words that I do this for the greater good. I need to add that to my website, Benjy. So appreciate that.
Yeah.
And parting words is thanks for having me, and hopefully we'll get back to normalcy soon.
Okay, where do we find you online?
LouShapiro.com.
Okay, sounds good. Lou, thank you so much. We appreciate it. We'll see you next week, everybody.
LawFlip, objection, Your Honor.
Turn the game upside down.
LawFlip, objection, Your Honor.
Turn the game upside down.
Okay, so Arian, they're asking where they could find us. So for LawFlip, it's at LawFlip and LawFlip.com. For Smith & Benowitz, our law firm, which does personal injury, employment, and class actions, you can find us at Smith Benowitz and SmithBenowitz.com. For the personal stuff, like where you're really going to find the juicy stuff, at Benjy Smith and BenjySmith.com, at Wages Guru and LewisBenowitz.com for Lewis. Oh, so LawFlip is produced, directed, and edited by the young legend Arian Tabibian. Visual effects and compositions by another young legend, Oren Azad. Intro music provided by Pen Practice. Pen Practice, what is it? Premium instrumentals for upcoming artists by the music industry's top producers. For more info, visit penpracticemusic.com. I had so much fun recording the intro song with my man Hilton Deuce Wright. Looking forward to hearing more and more from Pen Practice. So the LawFlip identity, this hot logo that you're looking at, created by Garret, Whisten, and Travis Nagle. Special thank you to Shai and Seth from the Horwitz Marketing Agency. A huge thank you to Aaron and Vanessa from Smith & Benowitz for endlessly dealing with all of our podcast bullshit. And lastly, a huge thank you to our beautiful wives, Julie and Lisa, for supporting our vision, and all the love to all of our 4 boys combined. Disclaimer, this podcast is made available by Smith & Benowitz for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is only intended to provide general information and opinions about legal and other concepts, and is not intended to be used as a source of legal advice or relied on for legal advice. By listening to this podcast, you understand that no attorney-client relationship is being formed between you and Smith & Benowitz or any of its attorneys. This podcast should not be used as a substitute for competent legal advice from a licensed professional attorney in your state.